They say the lagoon remembers everything. It remembers the first canoe that ever split its waters. It remembers the names of fishermen long dead. It remembers the tears of mothers, the laughter of children, and the blood of those who were wronged and never avenged. But above all things, the lagoon of Lagos remembers Oba Arikuyeri, the king who ate the sea. They did not call him that at first. At first, they called him great. They called him wise. When Arikuyeri came to power in the island city, the people rejoiced for 7 nights. He was tall as an iroko tree, broad-shouldered as a baobab, and his voice, when he spoke in the court at Idumota, carried across the water like a drummer's signal fire. The elders placed the beaded crown upon his head, and even the wind seemed to pause to witness it. But power, like palm wine left in the sun, has a way of turning. If you've ever heard your grandmother lower her voice when she tells a story, you already know this is that kind of story. Like this tale? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. A new folktale drops every week, and the next one may be the one that changes how you see everything. It began slowly, the way rot always does. In the first year of his reign, Oba Arikuyeri demanded that all fishermen on the lagoon pay him a portion of their catch, 1 in every 5 fish. The elders grumbled but agreed. A king must eat, they said. A king must maintain the palace and feed the warriors who guard the city gates. In the second year, he demanded 1 in every 3. By the third year, it was 1 in every 2. And yet the palace was never full. Arikuyeri ate and ate, but something inside him remained hollow, a darkness in his chest, shaped like a hunger no fish or yam or palm wine could satisfy. He wanted more, not more food, more everything. He wanted the canoes, he wanted the nets, he wanted the very water the fishermen stood in. There was a woman in the market of sand grouse, her name was Mama Tinuke, who had sold smoked fish at the same spot for 32 years. Her stall was a small thing, a worn wooden plank, a charcoal pot, and a smile that could negotiate with the sun. When the king's tax collectors came to take her fish, she gave them what she owed. When they came back for more, she gave again. When they came a third time and said the king now owned the smoke itself, the very smell of her cooking, Mama Tinuke put down her fan, looked the collector in the eye, and said, "Tell your king that a man who eats the sea will one day choke on it." The collector laughed, but he remembered what she said. Everyone remembered what she said. Arikuyeri heard the words and was furious. He had Mama Tinuke's stall torn down. He had her fish confiscated. He had her brought before the court at Idumota and made to kneel on the hot stone floor while he sat above her on his throne, eating roasted plantain as though she were entertainment. "Who are you," he said, not even looking at her, "to speak of choking?" And Mama Tinuke, kneeling on hot stone, looked up at him with eyes that did not blink and said, "I am nobody, Kabiyese, but nobody has been watching you for 3 years." He banished her from the island. She left. She crossed the water to the mainland, to the area the fishermen called Ebute Meta, the 3 landings, and she kept walking until she reached the edge of the great forest beyond Yaba. And there, they say, she did not weep, she did not curse, she simply sat beneath an ope tree and began to wait. Now, you must understand something about the lagoon of Lagos. The water there is not ordinary. In the old time, before the traders came, before the roads, before the bridges, the people knew that the lagoon was alive, not alive like a fish, alive like a person. It had moods, it had memory, and it had a guardian, a spirit the old fishermen called Olokun Ekun, the weeping deep, who rose every generation to judge the deeds of those who ruled the shore. Olokun Ekun had slept for many years. She slept through drought, she slept through flood, She slept through the arrival of strangers from across the great water, but she could not sleep through the sound of a people crying. And the people of Lagos were crying. In the fishing villages of Ikorodu, fathers came home with empty nets. In the market of Badagry, women traded their jewelry for food. Children in Apapa walked with swollen bellies, and their grandparents told them, "One day things will be better." But they said it the way people say things they no longer believe, like a prayer worn smooth from too much handling. Olokum Ekun woke up. They say she rose first as a mist, then as a sound, low and resonant beneath the surface of the water, like the hum of 1,000 voices. The fishermen heard it early in the morning and pulled their canoes to shore. They did not know why. They simply felt that something in the water was listening, and it would be unwise to be caught in the middle of the lagoon when it finally spoke. Then the tide came. Not a storm, not a wave, just the tide, but rising. Rising at the wrong hour, rising at a pace the elders had never seen, rising past the mangroves, past the market stones, past the first steps of the palace courtyard. Arikuyeri stood on his balcony and watched it come. His warriors ran, his chiefs ran, his servants ran, even the palace cat, who had always looked at the king with a certain smug loyalty, jumped from the windowsill and vanished into the bush. Only Arikuyeri remained. Whether from pride or fear, and in kings these things often look the same, he did not move. The water reached his feet, his ankles, his knees, and then it stopped. From the middle of the lagoon, something surfaced. Not a crocodile, not a whale, something older. The old fishermen would later argue about what they saw. Some said it was a woman with a face like moonlight and hands like river reeds. Others said it was simply a voice rising from the water, deep as the floor of the ocean, patient as stone. Whatever it was, it spoke. And what it said, the griots have been singing for generations. You have eaten the fish. You have eaten the nets. You have eaten the patience of mothers and the future of children. You have eaten and called it ruling. Now, Arikuyeri, what will you give back? The king had no answer. He opened his mouth, and for the first time in his life, nothing came out. No decree, no threat, no clever words, just the sound of a man who had spent so long taking that he had forgotten what it felt like to offer. The water rose another inch. The woman you sent away, the voice said, the one who sells smoke and fish and truth at Sandgrouse, find her, restore what you took, begin there. Then the tide receded, in one breath, as though it had never risen at all. The lagoon returned to its ordinary face, still, gray, and minding its own business. Arikuyeri stood in wet robes in an empty palace, and for the first time in his reign, he was alone with himself. It is the loneliest place in the world, that, the inside of a man who has done wrong and knows it. He sent for Mama Tinuke. She came back from beneath the ope tree at Yaba. She walked through the city without hurry, stopping to greet people, touching the shoulders of those who had suffered, promising nothing except her presence. When she finally stood before the king, she did not kneel. She had knelt once on hot stone for a man who had not deserved the gesture. She would not do it again. Arikuyeri looked at her for a long time. Then he bowed. Not deeply, not theatrically, just enough, the bow of a man who is still proud but has learned at last the cost of pride. He returned everything, not all at once. He was a king, not a saint, but piece by piece, season by season, he rebuilt what he had broken. The fish went back to the fishermen, the market stalls reopened, Mama Tinuke returned to Sandgrouse and rebuilt her plank and her charcoal pot, and the smell of smoked fish once again drifted across the whole island like a blessing. They say the lagoon was quiet after that, unusually peacefully quiet, the way water is after it has said what it needs to say. Arikuyeri ruled for many more years. He was never beloved the way good kings are beloved, but he was respected the way reformed men are respected, with the knowledge that he had stood at the edge of himself and turned back. That is not nothing. In the long telling of history, that is actually quite a lot. And Mama Tsinuke, she lived to be old, very old, the kind of old where children stop counting the years and simply call it ancient. She never forgot what had been taken from her, but she also never let the taking define her. She sold fish, she laughed loudly, she told the truth in a city that had learned to flinch at it. And in this way, she did something that no crown could do. She kept the lagoon from having to wake up again. The lagoon remembers everything, even this. The end. That was The King Who Ate the Sea, a Lagos folktale about power, hunger, and the women the powerful always underestimate. If this story moved you, here's what to do. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that old stories still matter. Subscribe and turn on notifications. New folktales from across West Africa drop every week. Drop a comment below. Which character spoke to you most? Oba Arikuyeri, Mama Tsinuke, or the lagoon itself? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes the right folktale finds the right person at exactly the right moment. The lagoon is listening. Don't keep it waiting.